Chapter 8. On Wednesday morning, Quillerin and Bunsen drove to the Allison house on Merchant Street. Quillerin said he hoped some of the girls would be there. Bunsen said he'd like to photograph one of the canopied beds with a girl in it. The house was a Victorian monster, the love song of a 19th century carpenter enamored of his jigsaw, but it was freshly painted, and the windows exhibited perky curtains. Mrs. Mitty met them at the door, wearing her shapeless hat and a frilly lace collar. "Where's the girls?" Bunsen shouted. "Bring on the girls!" "Oh, they're not here in the daytime," said Mrs. Mitty. "They're working girls. Now, what would you like to see? Where would you like to start?" "What I want to see," said the photographer, "is those bedrooms with canopied beds." The decorator bustled around, plumping cushions and moving ashtrays. Then, a haggard woman came from the rear of the house. Her face was colorless, and her hair was done up in rollers, covered by a net cap. She wore a housecoat of a depressing floral pattern, but her manner was hearty. "Hello, boys," she said. "Make yourselves at home. I've unlocked the sideboard if you want to pour a drink." "It's too early for hooch," said Bunsen, "even for me." "You want some coffee?" Mrs. Allison turned her face toward the rear of the house and shouted, "Elsie, bring some coffee!" To her guests, she said, "Do you boys like sticky buns? Elsie, bring some sticky buns!" There was a piping, unintelligible reply from the kitchen. "Then find something else!" yelled Mrs. Allison. "It's a nice place you've got here," Quillerin said. "It pays to run a decent establishment," said the house mother, "and Mrs. Mitty knows how to make a place comfortable. She doesn't come cheap, but she's worth every penny." "Why did you choose early American for your house?" For an answer, Mrs. Allison turned to the decorator. "Why did I choose early American?" "Because it's homey and inviting," said Mrs. Mitty, "and because it is part of our national heritage." "You can quote me," Mrs. Allison said to Quillerin with a generous gesture. She went to the sideboard. "Sure you don't want a drink? I'm going to have one myself." She poured a straight rye, and as the decorator showed the newsmen about the house, Mrs. Allison trailed after them, carrying her glass in one hand and the bottle in the other. Quillerin made notes on crewel work, dry sinks, and Queen Anne candlesticks. The photographer formed an attachment for a ship's figurehead over the living room mantel, an old wood carving of a full-busted mermaid with chipped nose and peeling paint. He said, "Reminds me of a girl I used to date." "That's one I caught and had stuffed," said Mrs. Allison. "You should have seen the one that got away." Mrs. Mitty said, "Look at the skirts on those little cafe tables, Mr. Quillam. Aren't they sweet? They're slightly Victorian, but Mrs. Allison didn't want the interior to be too pure." "It's all pretty elegant," Quillerin said to the house mother. "I suppose you're fussy about the kind of girls you get in here." "You better believe it. They gotta have references and at least 2 years of college." She poured another ounce in her glass. The bedrooms were vividly pink. They had pink walls, pink carpet, and even pinker side curtains on the four-poster beds. "Love this shade of green," said Bunsen. "How do the girls react to all this pink?" Quillerin asked. Mrs. Allison turned to the decorator. "How do the girls react to all this pink?" "They find it warm and stimulating," said the decorator. "Notice the hand-painted mirror frames, Mr. Quillam." Bunsen photographed one bedroom, the living room, a corner of the dining room, and a close-up of the ship's figurehead. He was finished before noon. "Come around and meet the girls some evening," Mrs. Allison said, as the newsmen made their goodbyes. "Got any blondes?" asked the photographer. "You name it, we got it." "Okay, some night when I can get out of washing the dishes and helping the kids with their homework, I'll be around to collect that drink." "Don't wait too long, you're not getting any younger," Mrs. Allison said cheerily. As the newsman carried the photographic equipment to the car, Mrs. Mitty came hurrying after them. "Oh dear! Oh dear!" she said. "I forgot to tell you. Mrs. Allison doesn't want you to use her name or address." "We always use names," Quillerin said. "Oh dear! I was afraid so. But she thinks the girls will get crank phone calls if you print the name and address, and she wants to avoid that." "It's newspaper policy to tell who and where," Quillerin explained. "A story is incomplete without it." "Oh dear! Then we'll have to cancel the story. What a pity!" "Cancel it? We can't cancel it. We're right on deadline." "Oh dear! Then you'll have to write it up without the name and address," said Mrs. Mitty. She no longer looked like a dumpling to Quillerin. She looked like a granite boulder in a fussy lace collar. Bunsen said to his partner in a low voice, "You're trapped. Do what the old gal wants." "You think I should?" "You don't have time to pick up another cover story." Mrs. Mitty said, "Just say that it's a residence for professional girls." "That sounds nicer than career girls, don't you think? And don't forget to mention the name of the decorator." She shook a playful finger at the newsmen. As they drove away from the house on Merchant Street, Bunsen said, "You can't win them all." Quillerin was not cheered by this philosophy, and they drove in silence until Bunsen said, "They buried the Tate woman this morning." "I know." "The chief assigned 2 photographers. That's pretty good coverage for a funeral. He only sent 1 to the international boat races last week." Bunsen lit a cigar, and Quillerin opened his window wide. The photographer said, "Have you moved into the villa veranda with the bigwigs yet?" "I'm moving in this afternoon, and then I've got a dinner date with Mrs. Mitty's assistant." "I hope she's got references in 2 years of college." "She's quite a dish. Clever, too." "Look out for the clever ones," the photographer warned him. "The dumb ones are safer." Late that afternoon, Quillerin went home, packed his 2 suitcases, and called a taxi. Then he proceeded to stuff the cat into a canned tuna fish carton with air holes punched in the sides. Suddenly, Coco had 17 legs, all grabbing and struggling at once, and his verbal protests added to the confusion. I know, shouted Quillerin above the din, "but it's the best I can do." When the 17 paws, 9 ears, and 3 tails were tucked in, and the cover clapped shut and roped, Coco found himself in a snug, dark, sheltered place, and he settled down. The only sign of life was a glistening eye, seen through one of the air holes. Once, during the brief ride to the villa veranda, the taxi swerved to avoid hitting a bus, and from the back seat came an outraged scream. "My gosh!" yelled the driver, slamming on the brakes. "What'd I do?" "It's only my cat," said Quillerin. "I've got a cat in one of these boxes." "I thought I hit a pedestrian. What is it, a bobcat?" "He's a Siamese. They're inclined to be outspoken." "Oh yeah, I've seen them on television. Ugly buggers." Quillerin's mustache curled. He was never overly generous with gratuities, but he remembered to give the driver a tip lighter than usual. At the villa veranda, Coco produced ear-splitting howls in the elevator, but as soon as he was released from his box in the Norton apartment, he was speechless. For a moment, he stood poised with one forepaw lifted, and the place was filled with breathless, listening cat silence. Then his head swung from side to side as he observed the general features of the room. He walked cautiously across the sleek wood floor. He sniffed the edge of the thick-piled rug and extended one paw experimentally, but withdrew it at once. He nosed the corner of one sofa, examined the hem of the draperies, looked in the wastebasket near the desk. Quillerin showed Coco the new location of his sandbox and gave him his old toy mouse. "Your cushion's on the refrigerator," he told the cat. "Make yourself at home." An unfamiliar bell rang, and Coco jumped in alarm. "It's only the phone," Quillerin said, picking up the receiver and seating himself importantly behind the fine leather-topped desk. From the instrument came a voice speaking in careful English. "I have a transatlantic call for Mr. James Quillerin." Speaking. "Copenhagen calling." Then came the excited voice of Harry Norton. "Would you believe it? I'm in Copenhagen already. How's everything? Did you move in? Did you get settled?" "Just got here. How was the flight?" "Some turbulence east of Gander, but it was a good trip on the whole. Don't forward any mail till I give the signal. I'll keep in touch, and one of these days I'll have a scoop for the Daily Fluxion." "A news story?" "Something fantastic. Can't talk about it yet, but here's why I called. Do you like baseball? There's a pair of tickets for the charity game stuck in my desk calendar. It's a shame to let them go to waste, especially at $30 a throw." "I'll probably have to work Saturday." "Then give them to your pals at the paper." "How do you like Copenhagen?" "It looks very clean, very tidy. Lots of bicycles." "How soon will your news break?" "Hopefully within a week," said Norton. "And when it does, the Fluxion gets the first crack at it." After hanging up, Quillerin looked for Norton's calendar. He found it in the desk drawer, a large leather-bound book with a diary on one side and an index for telephone numbers on the other. The baseball tickets were clipped to September 26th, box seats behind the dugout, and Quillerin wondered whether he should use them or give them away. He could invite Alicoque Wright, break away from the office at noon on Saturday. "Coco," he snapped, "get away from that book." The cat had risen noiselessly to the top of the desk and was sinking his claws in the edge of the telephone index. He was trying to play the game. Quillerin's mustache twitched. He could not resist opening the book to the page Coco had selected. On it, he found the telephone numbers of a Dr. Thomas and the well-known law firm of T-Handle, Burris, Hansblow, Mouse, and Castle. "Congratulations," Quillerin said to the cat. "You've cornered a mouse." There was also Tappington, the stockbroker, and the phone number of Toledo, the most expensive restaurant in town. And at the bottom of the list, there was the name Tate. Not George Tate or Vernon Tate, but Signe Tate. Quillerin stared at the hastily scrawled name as if it were the ghost of the dead woman. Why had Norton listed Signe and not her husband? What business did a big-time promoter have with the invalid wife of a rich, idle collector of jades? Quillerin recalled his conversation with Norton at David's party. The jade theft had been discussed, but the promoter had not mentioned his acquaintance with the late Mrs. Tate. And yet he was an unabashed name-dropper, and the Tate name would have been an impressive one to drop. Quillerin closed the book slowly and opened it again quickly. He went through the diary, checking Norton's appointments day by day. He started with September 20th and worked backward to January 1st. There was no entry concerning Signe Tate or Muggy Swamp, but the color of ink changed around the 1st of September. For most of the year, it had been blue. Then Norton switched to black. Signe Tate's phone number was written in black. It had been added within the last 3 weeks.